Warriors in Quiet Waters Foundation assists post 9/11 combat veterans and their loved ones to find peace, meaning, connection, and purpose through fly fishing. We bring warriors here to Bozeman and put them through a week-long experience where we teach them how to fly fish to provide them respite from stress and anxiety. And we connect them to a broader community of volunteers and staff members that allows them to start breaking through those barriers of isolation, find trust and connection, make meaning of their service, and start thinking about what their future as a veteran looks like. One of the ways that we're able to build on that mission is by partnering with the Overwatch+Project. The thing that really compelled me about the Overwatch+Project was what I saw as the missing piece, and that's this conversation about guns and veteran suicide. In fact, it never occurred to me until I saw the Overwatch+Project's approach that, that's a question that I never thought about asking. That's a conversation that I never thought about having with someone that I thought was in crisis. And hindsight being 2020, I wonder how I got there, but it was just something that wasn't apparent. I think that's because it's not a normal conversation that people have, and the fact that the Overwatch+Project is trying to normalize that conversation, make that something that's not uncomfortable or awkward, and something that's front of mind when you're talking to a veteran that you're concerned about, that may be in crisis, that may be contemplating suicide. That's the first place we ought to go. That's why it was so compelling, and it really showed me a path forward to make a difference when it comes to preventing veterans from committing suicide by gun. Once I had a chance to look at the work that the Overwatch+Project is doing, I had a conversation with the Overwatch+Project's leader. And really what I realized was that Warriors in Quiet Waters could be great ambassadors of the Overwatch+Project's approach, the work that they're doing, and really amplify the effort that they're making in order to get in front of veteran suicide. We touch a lot of military service members, a lot of veterans and their family members, and we're really a great conduit to spread the message of the Overwatch+Project and the approach of just fucking ask to as many veterans and military families members as we can in order to speed that process up. Once again, the clock's ticking every day, and we need to get ahead of this as quickly as we can, and this is the best approach that I've seen to do that. That's why we're partnering with the Overwatch+Project. One of the ideas that we discussed, and I jumped on right away, was for us to be the pilot for their Train the Trainer program. And that opportunity was something that we wanted to be first in line to do. So we got our whole staff together and a couple board members from Warriors Quiet Waters together in our conference room for the Train the Trainer session. The first thing that I keyed in on was the energy that the Overwatch+Project brought to this conversation and into this training. That was the first thing. The second thing was the data that we saw in that presentation, the data about the epidemic of veteran suicide by gun nationally. Pretty sobering data. And then we saw the data for Montana, which is even more sobering. And because of that, we realized this wasn't something that we could take our time on. It was something that we needed to do as quickly as we could. So much so that after the training was all done, my chief development officer walked into my office within 10 minutes of us finishing the training. And despite the fact that we were just running up to our biggest annual board meeting and our biggest annual fundraiser, she recommended to me that we should do a joint training with Montana State University here in Bozeman immediately following our biggest fundraiser of the year, because it was happening right around the anniversary of 9/11, everything that was going on with regards to our withdrawal from Afghanistan. It was a key inflection point, and it was a great opportunity to really create some learning moments around people that care about veterans at this time of great need.
So after the Train the Trainer training, I went into Brian's office and I said, what if we did a free community training where we invited every community member to do the same training? And we knew that we were in the middle of our largest fundraising event, but we also knew that this was the right thing to do. When we proposed this to Montana State University, it actually went all the way up to the president for approval, because this is the first training of its kind in the state of Montana in our local community. So it was a really big deal, and we're something that we're really proud of, that Montana State and the Vet Center endorsed this and helped co-promote and execute this Train the Trainer training.
We took the opportunity for me to co-present this training with the Overwatch+Project, also realizing that the audience would probably better receive it from a trusted network, a trusted organization that's in their local community, like Warriors and Quiet Waters Foundation.
Still in our culture, talking about suicide can be really difficult and taboo. And then when you integrate, hey, we also want to talk about the role that firearms play in the topic and issue of veteran suicide. I was nervous. I'm not going to lie. Nervous inviting people to this training and presentation. It got a lot of folks you saw their guard go up a little bit. And we just encouraged them. We said, please come, listen with an open heart and an open mind, and just give it a chance. And the content of the training, how real it was, the way that we talked about it, I've never heard it presented in that way before. And I think people really appreciated that fresh, real approach.
80% of veteran suicides in Montana are suicides by firearm. 10% more than the national rate of 70%.
But then also the way that the presenters just were so relatable. They were speaking in a way that made sense to people. And I saw the audience leaning in. I saw people really letting their guard down throughout the night. And then at the end, we saw people asking questions. How can I get involved? What's the next step in this conversation? They weren't leaving without knowing, how do we keep going from here? So I thought the event was incredibly successful, and we're excited to see what is the next step for us at MSU even.
So after the event was over at Montana State University, the way I knew we'd made an impact is we had several local veteran services organizations that approached me and the Overwatch Project about how they could carry this message forward. I had 3 heads of VFW posts in the local area that came and talked to me afterwards and wanted to get together and discuss how we could pull all of their posts together in one event to deliver this training to them so that then they can move forward and carry on the message. The local Marine Corps League, as well as the state Marine Corps League leader, reached out to us and after the event and wanted to have a conversation about how we could bring this message to the Marine Corps League, which has a national reach. Everybody in the audience was engaged. Everyone in the audience had ideas on how we could work with the Overwatch Project and with their organizations to move this message forward and to teach everybody to not forget to just fucking ask.
One of the things that I was most struck by after that event is I saw people who I really care about and admire turn to other veterans and say, I don't have a plan. Can we make a plan right now?
I have personal investment in the topic of veteran suicide prevention. I have lost friends. I've lost battle buddies. If you don't know somebody, you know somebody who knows somebody who's lost a loved one, a friend, a family member to suicide. And let those stories stoke a fire inside you. We can't keep losing people this way just because we're scared, because we're scared to talk about firearms, because we're scared to talk about suicide.
And I think for me, that was what was so powerful is here are these veterans that I think have their shit together and they're deep down struggling and carrying something with them that I had no idea. And this conversation gives people the space and time to think about that and to think that I need and I'm worth taking this action to protect myself and other people.
When the stakes are as high as they are, we don't need language getting in the way. This topic of veteran suicide and firearms is it's a great paradox in the sense that it's something has touched so many people's lives, killing so many veterans every day, and one that no one wants to talk about. So, like I said, I'm grateful for Warriors in Quiet Waters introducing us to the Overwatch Project. I'm grateful for them coming into our community here in Bozeman, Montana. And I'm excited for more people to access this information and this material, because I know there are people out there that need it.
So when I think about what success looks like when it comes to Warriors in Quiet Waters Foundation working with the Overwatch Project, I think of a couple things. The first is turning around the numbers in Montana. Montana leads the national averages for veteran suicides by gun and a bunch of other statistics. And like I said, it's a grim picture. I think that's the first place that we can make the biggest impact by, making this a normal conversation in Montana when it comes to veterans that are in crisis, about just fucking asking about their guns, coming up with a plan to create some time and space between a veteran in need and their firearms to prevent them from dying by suicide. I think another measure of our success would be, getting at least one program participant for every one of our programs that's moving forward and becoming an Overwatch Project ambassador and spreading the word and telling this story and this message about just fucking ask where they live, because that's just going to bloom from their communities from there.
Up until now, Warriors in Quiet Waters had not taken an active stance on how our programs or how we are actively preventing veteran suicide beyond building camaraderie and connection and trust with people and expanding people's networks and community. But the Overwatch Project partnership is allowing us and giving us tools to have real-time, tangible action towards preventing veteran suicide.
So when I think about advice that I give other organizations that are considering working with the Overwatch Project and may have some of these concerns, a couple things I'll tell them. First, I think that you have an obligation to lead. This is not a comfortable conversation to have, and you'll realize that as you go through the train the trainer. But it's a necessary conversation, and what better messenger to deliver that message than like-minded veteran services organizations that exist to help veterans thrive. We're talking life and death here. Probably the most urgent conversation that you can have. Seize the opportunity, seize the voice that you have, seize the place that you have in your community to lead on this effort. And one thing that I think I want everyone to realize is the beauty of this approach, the beauty of the work that the Overwatch Project is doing, is that anybody can do it. Anybody can get into this conversation. Anybody can help others to learn how to just fucking ask and really move the ball forward and make an impact on veteran suicide by gun.
Knowing what you know after going through a training with the Overwatch Project, you're like, this needs to be everywhere, right? Everyone needs to sit and partake in one of these sessions.
We're working with other VSOs in the local area and throughout the state on delivering this message to as many people as we can, as quickly as we can. We're working with other universities outside of Bozeman. We're creating alumni events where we can spread this training to all of the alumni that have come through Warriors in Quiet Waters. And we're also offering it as an opportunity for our participants and our alumni to find some purpose in their lives in delivering this message and moving the ball forward on this challenge and this problem of veteran suicide by gun. One of the major things that I took away from my service on the Joint Staff, working in the Chairman's Office of Reintegration, was the place that purpose has in the lives of veterans. I believe personally that it's a critical component to a veteran thriving in their veteran lives. We're taught the meaning of service in the military. We're taught the value of purpose, and that's something that we live every moment that we're on active duty. And in many cases, that's the missing piece for a lot of veterans. They can have that whole other hierarchy of needs filled out, but if they lack purpose, they're not thriving. In many cases, they languish because they lack purpose. One of the best things that I've done since I retired from the Marine Corps was standing on that stage at Montana State University and delivering this message. it gives me purpose, just like it's going to give you purpose. So get involved.